this? This is TRPG 101. The subtitle is What Am I Getting Into? Right? And this is actually going to be a conversation. It's not really a presentation, but there are some things I'd like to present before we go into that. First of all, what do we hope to achieve in this little conversation? Well, we'd like to understand what tabletop role-playing games are in general. And we'd also like to learn what you need to play a tabletop role-playing game. We also want to understand what playing a role-playing game requires of you, right? Because there's two ways about it. By the way, if there's anything you'd like to ask, feel free to stop me anytime. So what are tabletop role-playing games? Well, they are also referred to as pen and paper role-playing games. I'm sure you've heard of that. It's very much in the media. Not as common, tabletop role-playing games. That was a surprise for me. My generation just called them role-playing games. This is a very important date as far as the hobby is concerned, because this was the year that Dungeons and Dragons was first published. And if you're curious, this is what the package looked like.
Alright, there you go. So there's somebody too, so.
You're welcome. Well, join up. This is what the old Dungeons and Dragons looked like way back in 1974 when it was first published. 1974, that's about 42 years ago. If you're curious, this game was created by this fellow. His name is Ikari Gygax. And of course, he's dead. The other guy who also is credited with the game is this fellow, Dave Arneson.
The original killer DM.
Oh yes, and he's also dead. So why am I mentioning this? Well, just to get the perspective, right? These are the sort of people who created the game. There's a lot of backstory behind this, and believe it or not, there's actually a connection to H.G. Wells. If you're curious about that story, we can talk about it later. Just know that these are the authors of that game, Dungeons and Dragons, back in 1974. Okay. This is how the game is imagined by media. Tabletop role-playing games are games where participants describe their characters' actions through speech. That's the usual way we talk about our actions. We determine the actions of our characters based on their characterization, right? In some game systems, this is very mechanical, others it's very freeform. But generally, why the characters act and what the characters do is based on how you understand your character, or the direction you want to take your character in terms of growth. Even that has changed a bit. I'll explain in detail later on. Just remind me. Now, the older editions of role-playing games would compare this to playing cowboys and Indians when you were kids, or make-believe. If you had disagreements, very frequently you'd end up fighting, then you get tired, and you eat something, and you're friends again. Okay? We're talking about a game. So, for this game, you need a formalized set of rules. There is a system involved, or there's a set of agreements that we observe to be able to resolve actions. Because not all actions are based on agreement. Sometimes there are people who oppose. So we use rules to help move the game forward. And within the rules, the players have the freedom to improvise. They're able to shape the direction and outcome of the game. As many a games master will tell you, it's very difficult to actually plan the game because your players surprise you all the time. And that's actually part of the fun of the game. Now, if you're curious about that, there's actually an entry in Wikipedia under tabletop role-playing games. So there's more of that. Okay, now what do you need to play tabletop role-playing games? Well, you need friends, of course.
I have none of those.
It's a good way to start. Time, I don't have that either. Rules, and paraphernalia. And even then, that again is questionable. Let's start with the most obvious, friends. In a role-playing game, friends, usually it's a very, very social activity. There is one who plays the role of the game's master. This is the person who helps tell the story. He or she runs the game. The others are players. They're called player characters. They run player characters and they play the game. Now keep in mind that the game's master and the player characters are not in opposition. They actually work together. This is a game where there is no such thing as a victory condition. You don't win in a role-playing game. You develop a great experience and great memories of the game. But winning or losing, it's not the be all and end all of the game. Let's talk about time. Now this is really the serious part of the game because nowadays lately there's very little of it. And this hobby requires between 2 and sometimes in my experience 6 hours and maybe even more. So this is a very, very serious time commitment. On the other hand, in defense of the hobby, you think back to other things that you've done. They usually fall within that time range. Concerts, games, eating out, going out with friends, right? Okay, so yeah, so this is pretty much typical of a pastime. 2 to 6 hours. You also need rules. And recently, there have been a lot of them. Way back in 1974, there was only one game in town, and that was Dungeons and Dragons. Fast forward 42 years later, you have over 1,000 games. I should note, I have a library of role-playing games. The library is over 100 gigabytes. It's a lot of material. But then, that's 42 years we're talking about. They come in 2 formats, hard copy and electronic, especially in the past few years. Now let me talk about the formats for a while. Hard copy. We're talking about our local experience. You can get them at local retailers. There are specialty shops around the city that sell hobby material, and sometimes they carry these games. Occasionally, you might find them in bookstores. Occasionally. But you're most likely to find them in local retail specialty shops. Okay? I won't name what those specialty shops are because frankly I haven't been keeping up. Okay? But there are a few. You can also order them directly from Amazon. However, there is an importation problem. Okay? I don't do this myself, but I've heard that people who do import books from Amazon end up paying more than the book. So that's a consideration. Okay?
I have some insight on that because I recently imported a book from a role-playing game book from Amazon. It's expensive because you have to pay a deposit, import fee deposit.
Okay.
But as long as you import books, you get all of it back.
Oh, that's
about 2 months later.
That's a long time. But at least you get the money back.
But you get all of it back. So you actually don't pay any taxes on the books that you import from Amazon. But you wait 2 months to get your the import fee deposit back.
Well, better to have your money tied up.
Yeah.
Better to have it
But
for 2 months.
on the flip side, if you order from Amazon.com, it arrives fast. Like 1 week, it's here,
Okay.
and that's at your door. So, yeah.
They've actually improved their system, so that's good. So that's an option. All right, just keep that in mind. Mark, thanks for that.
No problem.
Forwarding.
It's actually cheaper. Well, I used both forwarding and Amazon. Now Amazon is very, very Very, very good.
They need to. They need to. There are a lot of up and comers.
I mean, yeah. The only drawback really is the deposit.
The process.
No, deposit. You have to pay more, but you get it back after 2 months.
So it just ties up your money for a while.
For 2 months.
Yeah, that's why I'm using it.
So does it go back? It goes back to your
Credit card.
Okay. That was like Amazon Chris.
No. It goes back to your credit card.
Go ahead. You haven't really missed much. I just gave an overview. The meat of the presentation is the conversation later on.
And you can find this on YouTube later.
All right.
Oh.
Okay, so here also some books come with electronic formats. In fact, that's starting to become the norm. And they're wonderful to have at the table because they enhance atmosphere. It's always good to have something to hold. Okay. Let's talk about electronic copies.
It's faster to browse. Hard copies.
That's true. Actually, I'm still waiting for them to fix that problem because
Random access.
and also electronic copies try really hard to emulate hard copy.
You can flip up.
Yeah, which you can flip. And I'm not happy with that because it's a different medium.
Well, Windows Reader is pretty good. The Windows Reader app is pretty good.
No, I
Yes,
mean
I-
random flip.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can do that because you if you pinch to zoom out, it'll give you like a tile view of all of the pages, and you can just go like that, and then you go stop, and okay, it's as if you flip through a random page.
Still though, I would prefer if somebody eventually comes out with a format
And
that's designed-
cross-referencing.
that's special problem.
Oh, yeah.
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 One section to another section.
Exactly.
Back and forth.
Exactly. I wish there was someone who
Although,
did something like that.
I've been told that there are apps that do like tab browsing for PDFs.
That's
So
coming up.
technically the sections are like browser tabs.
Oh, there you go. But just now that technology is advancing very quickly, it won't be long before we have really friendly electronic versions. Now, Drive-Thru RPG is the biggest name of the source for these materials. You can actually go through there. And almost all of the RPGs that we know of are available through there. Okay?
Some of it's free, a lot of it's.
Oh yeah, that's another thing. Now, designers and publishers also make their games available sometimes for free, right, on their websites. This is
I just want to add about the designers and publishers. Some designers and publishers like to publish on their websites because Drive-Thru takes 33% of the cover price.
Youch.
So if you're selling your RPG book at $9, our Drive-Thru takes 3. You're only left with, you only make 6. But if you buy directly from their websites, they make all of it. So if you really like the designer or publisher and they have their own book up on their site, buy it from their site because they get more money that way.
Although most people discover their publishers first through
Right, Drive-Thru.
So it does serve a purpose. Also, Amazon Kindle Store. You want to talk about this?
Yeah, there are.
That experience, huh?
Yeah, but the thing with Drive-Thru, you have a collated library of your purchases too.
Yeah, true. That's what you can't get from just paying the guy and having him email you the
If
file.
there's like edition revisions or something.
Well, usually the good designers will update you, but it's hit or miss because it depends on how diligent the designer is.
And keep in mind that this is actually a new media, and many of the designers have day jobs. So realize that in a way. There are no taxes or taxing on shipping fees, of course. Okay, we're not talking about physical product. However, you do need a good device.
Yeah.
A tablet.
Uh-huh.
About 10 inches or greater, good resolution, and fast processor.
You do not want to open a PDF on your phone. That is bad. Speaking from experience,
And this is starting
it's
to be-
terrible.
This is the trend. Many electronic copies have express permission to allow you to print them on your own. And I'm actually surprised to hear that locally we actually have a lot of services that do exactly that.
And bookmarks.
And bookmarks. There you go.
So there are some PDFs though that aren't
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
not supposed to, that you're not supposed to print them. Okay, you're not supposed to print them. Some lock the print option, some don't.
Yeah.
But some, I mean, you have to check. But then again, this is the Philippines. So I mean, how are they gonna enforce their rights here? So it's up to your conscience.
That's going to be in YouTube. Where you sure?
We can hold that language.
No audio. Okay.
Paraphernalia.
You just keep out mark.
Paraphernalia. Okay, paraphernalia. By this I mean pencils, erasers, paper, character sheets.
Menu.
Guys, that's not paraphernalia, that's a necessity.
No, yeah, but it's not listed in your
it's not.
insurance.
That's a different conversation. That's a big conversation.
Maps and miniatures. And that's what they usually look like. However, keep in mind that these are all optional. Okay, you can run a game without any of this. It'll be more
Depending
painful.
on the system.
Depending on the system.
And also depending on the patience of your players, but these are really actually optional. You don't really need them.
Okay. And what does playing TRPGs require from you?
It requires you to be considerate. Remember, 2 to 6 hours. For the games master, he's the one who usually has to look for a venue.
He has to prepare the game, and he has to make sure everybody's schedules line up. So it's very important that when you play the game, you be sensitive to people as well. And the outcome of the experience, it's really an experience, really depends on how you treat other people at the table. Alright?
So the better you treat each other, the better your experience will be based on past experience.
So it's very important to be considerate when you involve yourself in a team RPG. It also requires you to be collaborative because the flavor of the game changes with the composition of the table. So you are very important because without you, the flavor changes. This is one game where everyone is unique and valued. It's unlike those board games, so it doesn't matter who plays what piece. It's still the game. But with role-playing games, you change the player at the table, the experience changes. So that's how important you are. So it's important to be collaborative. Question?
No.
Okay. And contributive. This is where you have to speak up. This is where you have to find a way to make your character interact. There are some game systems, we'll talk about one later on, where you can actually just simply look through a list of movements, but others require you to actually imagine possibilities. It can be challenging at first, but I noticed that this is actually a skill that you can learn. And the more you play, the better you get at it. So it requires you to be contributive. So who are we? The one setting this thing up. That's the logo. We are gamers and GMs. We call ourselves GMG for short.
And the PNG.
GNGM, well, GNG is actually,
Yeah.
and notice we use the ampersand, not the A.
No. Yeah, I use GNG too, but people say GNG.
They do that, okay. Okay, it's up to know. GNG, we seek to foster, these are the tenets. We seek to foster mutual trust for those, among all those involved in the hobby. We want everyone to have fun. And we celebrate diversity in game styles, so because there are many game styles. And the longer the hobby grows, the longer the hobby exists, the more game styles there will be. I will not cover the different game styles in this talk, that's a different talk altogether. And we support others in the hobby community, which is why we run these events. Okay? And you always feel free to contact us if you have any questions or you need help, we'll see if we can help you. Right? That's how we offer support. Okay, so now we answer questions. I'll open the floor with questions. What are you looking? Any questions so far? None? Have I? You came in here not knowing about the hobby, and I was able to answer all your questions. I find that hard to believe.
I guess my question would be,
Yeah.
since for me, like the company, it was the first time, or at least me, it's the first time I've been in a talk like this specific to RPGs, although we've been playing RPGs for quite a while now. So my question would be, do you have, or can you tell me what is the overall state of the gaming community in the Philippines? Because it's like the first time we heard of a core group of people coming together to come up with an organization like Gamers Internationale.
This hobby is starting to enter the mainstream because of mainstream media. Way back in 1974, it was a niche.
And there's a resurgence.
And there is a resurgence. Actually, there are more and more people wondering about the hobby now because of media and word of mouth. I would say it's growing. I would say it's growing a lot. And the community here has been going through fits and starts. There have been groups that have been trying to form the community ever since 1987, 1986. So they form, they disperse, they reform, they disperse. It's like that.
How many of them were you involved in, Adrian?
All of them. I can tell you the history of the gaming hobby in this country because I was part of the ones who wrote it. So yes, so we're growing. As our ancillary hobbies, board games are becoming popular. Computer games are very popular. I think computer games feed back into the hobby. Whether the computer game industry wants to admit it or not, they owe their existence to this hobby. If it weren't for Dungeons and Dragons, the computer games would be, would have difficulty looking for material. Please, come in, join us. Okay, have I answered your question? Okay, we are now in the question and answer portion. So don't worry, feel free to ask any question. It is fair game. If you covered the material that you're asking about, that's still fine. I'll answer the question anyway. Alright? Okay, any other questions? Yes, go ahead.
How would you, as a game master, how would you handle the different levels of involvement with your peers or your people?
That's a very tricky question because going back to the beginning of the hobby, there was no backward material. Alright? You just played the game and hope everybody liked the game as you went along. Of course, the consequence was some really liked the game, others would drop out. But today, many games, many new games, the ones published in the last, I would say 5 years, have a specific mechanism for player buy-in. So before you even talk about running a game, you already talk about buy-in. You already talk about levels of commitment. When I was younger, that was a long, long time ago. Quiet, your allowance is at stake. Well, that was a long, long time ago. You just say, let's play Dungeons and Dragons, and then you make your characters, and then you just play the game. Right? You don't ask questions like that. But today, before you even play, you say, all right, let's sit down, let's discuss whether or not we want to play Dungeon World. What kind of game do you want to play? Do you want to kill a monster? Do you want to uncover lost treasure? Do you want to uncover hidden technology? Those questions are asked. And this mechanism, this process, evolved through 40 years of gameplay because of a lot of failed games. So how would I answer that question? I'd probably rely on the procedure. I would probably gauge how committed my players are to the game. Sometimes they'll say, let's play just one session, and that's it. And that's fine. Others will say, when we'll play again, can we schedule this game next time? Then you know you have an ongoing game. Alright? I never take it for granted though, because every single game I run, I always assume that it's going to be the last session. After all that time, that always happens to me. Okay? Have I answered your question? Okay, next. Any questions?
I have a question. How about beginners? Let's say they're not familiar to the hobby and they're quite hesitant. How would you advertise or explain the hobby to them?
That's what I'm doing right now. There are two ways you can actually do that. One is you get them together with other beginners. That way, they'll all feel that they're on the same starting point. That works in one way. The other is to throw them in with veterans, with the explicit requirement that the veterans handhold the beginner. Right? And this is necessary because many gaming groups develop their own language. They develop their own shortcuts. They have their own in-jokes. And the idea here is to get the person who is a beginner and outsider turned into an insider. Okay? But how would I handle this? I would normally just talk to them one by one and find out what opportunities are available because, like I said, real life is very difficult to manage. But those two extremes, an all beginner group and the veterans hand-holding the beginner. Have I answered your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Questions? Yes.
So you mentioned for having a venues board. Do you have any suggestions to what where to meet up? Because there's a way to sign up for people there outside, right?
Right.
And if you have any suggestions about where to meet up or where to hold your game because it's like 2 hours. So
I'm going to rely on a lot of past experience. My old groups would normally meet up at coffee shops. Our favorite was Dunkin' Donuts. Why? 24 hours, cheap, and they normally don't throw you out as long as you don't show any multi-level marketing material. You're fine. Okay. Recently, Starbucks has become a favorite. Other coffee shops as well. I understand in Japan they actually go to karaoke bars.
And actually, I recommend that. Especially if you have, because number one, they're cheaper in the afternoon. Because they make they become pricey in the evening, but in the afternoon they're cheap. And second, sound insulation. If you want to do a heavy drama game and you're going to be distracted by the Starbucks baristas calling out people's names, you don't want that, go to karaoke bar.
It's actually a good idea.
Yeah.
Because most of my newbies, they haven't played before, but they like singing. So
Yeah.
that could probably be a good play.
Yeah, you can, while waiting for people to show up, yeah, you could have like a impromptu karaoke thing, and then when everyone's there, you play.
I'll do that.
Yeah.
To be honest, the Japanese have it right, but they've come to that solution because of their cultural mindset. They don't like. They're very wary about inviting people to their homes, unlike us who our home is open. But you might want to try that. You look for a karaoke bar, check the afternoon rates, make sure everybody's okay with the price. Some of them are actually good because they're visual. Alright? Have I answered your question?
yes. But I'd like to follow up.
Sure.
How do you feel about doing a session through Skype or like any like video call?
I do
I'm
that.
going to have to defer to Mark.
Yeah, I do that. I have a regular Roll20 game.
Answering questions right now.
We use the Roll20 app to communicate. And I've taken, well, we're running the starter set, and my players are just about to complete it. They just have to clear the last dungeon, and then they'll finish it. It took us, in my experience, it's just about as involved as a real game. So, but it's a lot easier because all the maps are there. I mean, you can just upload your tokens and stuff, and it's all there. It captures, I think, about 80 to 90% of the actual table experience. But I mean, for me, nothing beats actually being at the table and seeing people's faces.
If you're wondering about remote role playing, I think si Juan de la Cruz. Justin's the man to talk.
Yeah, but
He's the biggest
see, I think the biggest drawback of online is because of our internet infrastructure in this country. if your players are on PLDT and you're on Globe, expect your calls to be like dropped every 30 minutes. They'll like suddenly disappear from the chat, and then they have to say, oh, they'll be texting you, I need to reconnect. Give me 10 minutes. Okay, so you're waiting for 10 minutes doing nothing until they come back.
Admittedly, some nuances are lost across the media Like,
Yeah, but true, but they're also
Answering those questions again if you want to clarify anything. All right. Any other questions? Why are you here? What do you want to know about getting into tabletop role-playing games? Yeah.
Well, I guess the given fact that the most popular system would probably be D&D of whatever version played for. But what would be the distant second in the Philippines?
Oh, I can't answer that question. I'm out of touch. You might have to. Well, I'm going to throw that question to Mark and Fabs and sorry, I can BJJ because they're the veterans. Fabs, you first.
Well, if you go to other game shops, they're actually selling Pathfinder books. I'm thinking Pathfinder's the second famous, but who made the zombie survival game? That publisher.
FFG?
it's Fantasy for Life.
Yeah, Fantasy Flight has a lot of players here. Like their books really have buyers. So I'm guessing their books are also famous.
Yeah, as far as products being sold on shelves in stores, I think FFG is the next most visible.
Mm.
Like games,
End of the world, Star Wars.
I think L5R is also has a huge following also because of the card game.
I'm not sure about the RPG. If there's a lot of it.
Just because we don't, at least from our perspective, at least she has more visibility on the L5R group than RPG, but I personally don't have that.
Okay. Have you answered your question?
It's Pathfinder or any FFG game. So the question was.
So I think in line with that, the more interesting thing to ask would be, what's a good starter system for games?
Anybody interested for that? Any of that? Because that's actually the next segment, and I'd like to defer on that.
Oh,
Oh.
that's bigger.
If you haven't come from, okay, in my opinion, if you haven't come from any game background, it's the next system that he's going to present. But if you come from computer games, D&D is okay. But if there's no role-playing game experience, no gaming experience, if your experience is only board games, it's this.
The wonderful thing about being alive in 2016 and being a role player is that you could actually claim legitimately that this is probably the cheapest hobby, the most sophisticated hobby that you can get into for virtually nothing. Because back in the day, back in 1974, 1980, 1990, the role-playing game books were expensive because of taxes, because of a certain extent of marketing. The language was English. The people who brought them in did not perceive the mass market as being able to handle the product, therefore it was marketed as elitist, and the pricing followed suit. But today, you fast forward again to 2016, you have the internet. Almost everybody has the internet, and if you know where to look, you can actually find really, really, really good game systems for free.
You can get the Fate card for free.
Mm-hmm.
You can get dice rollers for free.
That's right.
And that's what you need.
Exactly. So you have a bunch of friends. They don't come for free, of course, but if you have a bunch of friends, you can get them together. You can show them the game that you found. I found this on the internet. It's free. Let's give it a shot. And I'll bet you this is going to probably be the best 4 hours you spend together without alcohol. Okay. Alcohol, my experience, it's kind of iffy. But normally the experience is great because it's a great way to spend 4 hours. It's a great way to enjoy each other's company. It's a great way to enjoy food together and drinks. And it's a great way to make memories. My early gaming group, 25 years later, still talk about our adventures from when we were still wearing short pants. That's how strong the emotions are. And there are good things to carry forward. And there are good legacies to pass down. Okay? Just last night I gave my dice to my daughter, and I hope she uses them well. May they roll high.
Especially
Depending on the system.
She has my GM's dice. That's why they always go bad.
Because there are systems that you need to roll high and then you need to go below.
These are GM's dice. They will always go counter. I I am not going to. Well,
Well, you
you
always have a
mentioned
screen.
Yeah, not always. I did not take pictures of the dice because they're better fondled than seen.
Yeah, your basic quality blends.
Just passing on. This is what they look like. Feel free to open the case and go through the dice. Just make sure they're complete when you return them. There's 6 pieces.
7.
Seven pieces. Of course, been a long time.
Because you have the D12 that nobody loves.
I was going to give the D12 the love.
I've seen him give it 2012.
Quiet.
I have
The very first set I bought way back did not even have these dice. It was the mold base set, and all it came with were a collection of chips. Those dice were possible to get way back then. Okay, questions? Any more questions? Otherwise, we'll move on. None? Okay, let's see what else. So, we will seek work. Well, not really, because we won't be involved. This won't involve writing. Pick one and ask one. I'm going to show you how one particular game system creates characters. I'll walk you step by step. Alright? So this is about character creation. I will need those back after the session. So the tasks and the system we're going to look at is one of the up-and-comers. It's called Dungeon World. With a background. Vince Baker, right? That's the name of the writer?
Sage Latora.
Sage Latora.
Sage
Well,
Latora.
the original one is Vince Baker, but Dungeon World is by Sage and Gobel.
I should have added their names. Sorry about that. So, Dungeon World is one of the most popular new games that people are embracing, and I'm going to show you why. And I think the key is in the character sheet. I'll walk you through one particular character sheet. So please choose one. It doesn't matter which one. That's just for your reference, and then pass to the others. Once everybody has a character sheet, I'll go through the process. The one thing that makes this game system new is because this system was created out of the need of running just 4-hour games. The old games, Dungeons and Dragons, etc., up to the year 2000, assumed that you would have your group come back on a regular basis to play the game. So the mechanics were designed for long-term play. Then the conventions started becoming a thing, and they started becoming very popular. And people started running sessions at the conventions. These sessions would last between 2 to 6 hours. But once the session was done, that was it. You never saw each other again. All you had was just a one-shot game. It was a bit difficult using Dungeons and Dragons because a lot of things were happening. So eventually, the need developed game systems like this. This is not the only game system that addresses that need, but it's probably the most common. All right. So, long time no see. There's something behind you. Take a seat. Take a seat. See. Oh, sorry. Lower playing that. DJ, favor, would you get feedback forms from Rachel?
Okay.
Thank you.
Just start.
I will, since the other people come in, I will also, I'll open another question for the session. Okay? Does everybody have a character sheet now? Does everybody have a character sheet? It doesn't matter which character sheet you have, and by the end of the session, you're supposed to return them. But choose one and pass on, and make sure everybody has it.
who doesn't have one yet? Hands? Okay. Alright, so this is Dungeon World character creation. And the beauty of this is this system lays everything out for you. Okay, it can be viewed as a board game because all the moves are there. It can be viewed as a role-playing game because it's open that way. We have a couple more chairs here. Now each of you has a different version of the character sheet. For those who just came in, please raise your hands if you don't have a character sheet. Okay. This is just for demonstration. Okay. It doesn't matter which character sheet you have. Thank you so much, Vijay. Yes, I will. Thank you. After this, I'm going to ask you to rate the book. Okay? Alright, one more character sheet for Roman. Any extras? Thank you. Just going to focus on the fighter as an example, but this is just an example. And if you look at your character sheets, you will see there's a front side and a back side. Okay? We are just going to focus on the front side because this is character creation. The back side is for character advancement. Alright? So our focus is just character creation. Pay attention to the first side, to the side of your character sheet. The one that's vertical. This is your class, your role. In order to make games like this work in a 4-hour session and to give each player a unique experience at the table, the games like this had to emphasize what is called niche protection. You have to be the unique thing at the table. There can be only one fighter, only one wizard, only one cleric. But then it's only one session. So the class was very important. This was your niche. And this determined how you interacted with the game world. Let's zoom in on the first block. I think it's pretty much all the same for all of you. There are some variances, of course. They're not exactly the same. But what I want to draw attention to is this. It even gives you suggestions for names. Those are sample character names. Keep in mind again that this was designed for very short game sessions. You didn't want to spend a day looking for the perfect character name. So for Dungeon World, they give you the appropriate name for a fighter if you are a dwarf, if you are a halfling, if you are an elf, if you are a human. Only these 4 races can be fighters in the world of Dungeon World. Okay? All the others give you a general idea how you might want to play your character. You choose one body, one set of eyes, one hairstyle, one skin color. Just encircle. It's already enough for that. Make your own. Or the blank, make your own. Okay? I will leave the middle part for later explanation because this is mechanics. Armor, hit points, and damage. You value that on each device. And then you have alignments. This one has to do with gaining experience points, which is a long-term concern. But for now, our focus will be on making a character. So we're done with this. Now let's focus on the next one. They're called the stats. In the old days, we'd roll 3 6-sided dice in order and have to live with them.
that mechanic has evolved. Instead, for this game, you can just use this. You should use it instead. You're given a list of numbers and a modifier for the number after it. Okay? The big number goes into the rectangular square. The small number goes into the circle. Okay? This is actually pretty much standard Dungeons and Dragons. It's taken from there. Any questions so far? All right, good. Now let's focus on bonds. Now, this is a pretty recent development. In the old days, characters would just come in with their stories, and the games master would have to find a way to make the stories work together. Sometimes it doesn't work. It's very difficult. Which is that?
I think so.
Right?
It's coming from me.
Okay. Okay. Different player involvement. That was correct, DJ. This was another way to actually make sure that characters were involved. When before, player characters would come up with their own character background, some of them how to destroy the party. Mechanics like this would make sure that you had a relationship going in. And of course, you had freedom to decide what
Excuse me.
relationship you had. This has a mechanic behind it in Dungeon World because if you're able to fulfill this, you get additional experience.
Can you take over? I have to
So
go
what I
to
want to
another
point
talk.
out here is that you actually have control in filling out the time. Unless the GM puts it in that blank area, the answer normally is no. Why? Because they want to move the game very quickly ahead. Questions so far? None? Okay. And this one is the starting moves. Very important to note this. This is starting moves. Now I want you to look at your character sheets. Not all of you have fighter, but all of you have starting moves. This is what they call niche protection. Since you are the only fighter in the group, only you have these moves. Since you are the only wizard in the group, you have a set of moves that nobody else has. Same thing with cleric, same thing with paladin. Okay? The fun here is finding out how things work together. And of course, even within some moves, you can customize. You don't have to be the fighter with the sword, you can be the one with the axe. Your axe can be bloody, and so on and so forth. Okay? Questions on this one? Okay, in that case, coming this April. Now, you might be interested in this if you're interested in Dungeon World. We will not have a Minicon this March. The reason being is because we normally schedule the Minicons on the last Sunday of the month. In March, that happens to be Easter Sunday. So we're skipping that and we're going to be holding two events in April. The first Sunday and the last Sunday. These are very special events because this coming April, we're going to run a game called The Last Days of Anglo-Kite. This is a game powered by Dungeon World rules. This is a world that's about to end. The players are going to play heroes standing up against the end of the world. It's very dramatic, it's very Pulp Fiction. What's more, there will be 3 simultaneous tables running. And the players can move from table to table depending on their need. It's a big world, and we're looking for players. So if you found that you like, or found that the character sheets of Dungeon World is gaming, Fabs is going to run Fabs, please. He's going to run a Dungeon World game later on. I encourage you to sign up under him. He's one of my favorite gamers. Try it out. If you like it, consider joining us this April. Okay? And so, with that, all I'm going to say is thank you. And we end here. But I'll open the floor to more questions. Any more questions? Yeah?
It might be a question, where can I get the sheets and probably like the rules?
Fabs, can you answer that question?
Well, the rules are free. They're online Dungeon World system reference document. But the book, the PDF, is $10. Every now and then, a boobot.
Thank you, Fox.
Oh.
Yeah, you bought yours on there.
Well, I grabbed the first copy of Dungeon World, but sometimes one abubot.com has
A page.
.ph, sorry. Has the Dungeon World book. But
They're restocking in March.
if you
Plus it's time for April.
if you really want to learn how the game goes, the character sheets itself, because it's actually like a full booklet.
Yeah.
Just type in Dungeon World character sheets. It's free. You can read it, and if you're familiar with games, you can read it and you understand how the game works from there. Really, you really just need the basic moves.
Go through the
And the GM moves.
Yeah, actually, yes.
I'd like to ask what version of character sheet this is?
That's new, but the formatting is just new. It's just the same.
it's just the layout.
Yeah, it is actually like
Yung nawala lang
from
yung
the
reference
yung
sheet,
original
wala
version kasi is medyo lacking. This one allows additions like
Yeah.
other race.
The spaces, right?
Yeah.
The problem is it's small.
Chris?
Sorry, I missed your first part of the lecture.
History, you did too.
What's this? The part where it says look in the descriptor, what effect does that have for things like look of your axe
Yeah.
or the look of your character? It's just a physical description, or does it have an effect in the game?
Now
That's
that's
to answer the question.
That's a good question. The thing with Dungeon World is, okay, let's think of the traditional crunchy game like Dungeons and Dragons or Pathfinder. Descriptions would have a numeric interpretation for it to actually take effect. Like if I have a jagged sword, what does the jagged thing on it do? Does it give +3? Yeah, but in Dungeon World, the fiction is the mechanic. So if you have a jagged sword and you succeed in your roll, I can say, oh, it's a jagged sword, so I rip his neck off, which makes sense in game. You probably, most of you would think, I know, so this is easy to game, this is easy. You can do that, but the GM can also do that. Oh, you have a jagged sword, so it gets lodged sa ribs ng kalaban mo. You can't pull it out. Yeah. So so the fiction, yeah.
Think of it, the good analogy is if you're a little bit no HTML or Google search, fake searches much like a phrase algorithm because you have to keep track of aspects. So for example, if I type in Fighter of the North, that's the aspect that Google searches. But Dungeon World is the spider goes Dungeon World through tags. So in WordPress or blogs, there's tags specific to either content, pictures, chapters, or the actual article. So those two different things are analogous to, remember, in Fate you keep track of aspects, whether they happen in world, sa character mo, or an opponent's. In Dungeon World, everything is by little tags, and those tags mean everything. You can tag equipment, you can tag environments, you can tag NPCs, etc. etc.
So they have the same effect as the Fate
No.
time?
No, it's just like in the game of Fate, you keep track of aspects. In the game of Dungeon World, the most that you would keep track of are tags.
Those little
Yeah.
descriptors.
And the golden rule in Dungeon World is 2 numbers. You have just have to remember 7 to 9 and 10 above.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is if you get the 10 above, that's when you can really juice the thing out of your tags. If you have, yeah, if you can fail forward and you can succeed even more forward. So you succeed and you have a really sharp sword. What does it being very sharp do? You can say, oh, I slice through 3 thugs. Right? You can't do that in games that has numbers. There are numbers heavy.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I've read it, but I want to clarify that. I haven't read it. So the main premise or the promise of the thing is that the game has no initiative and combat is, superfluous. How can you elaborate on that?
When you're talking with your friends about a movie, how does it go? Like, if everyone knows the movie, like someone chimes in and say, oh, di ba, ginawa niya to, nga, tapos after nalaglag yung spaceship, tapos
Not everybody here speaks Tagalog.
Oh, yeah, sorry. So, like, your friends start throwing the descriptions of what's happening in no sensible order, and that's how conversations go. The greatest thing about Dungeon World is it's this one giant conversation that you're really just telling each other what's happening in the story, and making the story. So, no initiative, here's how it goes. I say, there's a dragon that's attacking you, what do you do? He shouts, oh, I jump in front of him. Okay, then he gets hit by the dragon, what do you do? I push him in front of the dragon. Right?
And then it would be the game master's responsibility to fit what action you described into the mechanical action in the system.
Exactly. So in this game,
it will tell you how to
in this game, the good thing with this game is you don't tell me that you don't have to say that I have to do that. I'm doing this, and then you roll for it. No, you just describe what you're trying to do. Whatever it is, just describe it, and like what he said, it's my responsibility to interpret that within the rules of the game. The greatest thing about this game is you really don't need to teach it. Just say 6 below is failed, 7 9 have success, 10 above is success.
Okay, let me just get this out of the way here. I've distributed feedback forms. I appreciate your honest feedback because we always run talks, and this is a recurring talk. So we'd like to make the next session better than this session. So any suggestion or comment will be much appreciated. Okay? Oh. It wasn't working. It's gone. It's gone.
You forgot.
Yes. In that case, you go back to the old fashioned system. Try it again.
Parang college days na po.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right. First, I'm opening the floor again to questions or comments because now this is where the conversation happens. Yes.
Yung nalak lang siguro ng discussion dito kaya hindi makagrasp ng iba was the actual options for players when they do actions.
Yeah.
Kasi that's where the rule really relies on.
Yeah, it
on how
does.
it translates into actual mechanics.
They actually have a list, and I'm reluctant to go into that because I just want this as a generalization. You'll have to take care of that tabs when you introduce the game. Okay? But you're right. I wish I had more time to add that.
Yeah.
But I'm afraid it would have made this a dungeon world introduction. Which I want to avoid. Okay?
But it would be highly appreciated, even if it's just a flash of the thing, so that everyone would have an idea.
But it's an SRD.
Yeah.
It's
Actually,
online.
next time what I'll do is I'll put one on the screen and I'll probably attach it to the character sheets.
Because I tried Dungeon World with VJ. His sheet format had the actual actual list of options.
Yeah.
And the basic.
Yeah.
The basic
Yung landscape na booklet.
Yeah, the basic moves.
Yeah, the basic moves.
The nice thing about technology today is that things like that are easy to do. Gee, in my time, that was a miracle.
I agree.
What do you use pencils for that?
Use pencil for that. Toby would actually hand copy the book, scribes. He would actually copy a hard copy book into his notebook. So today, we take advantage of the technology. Any other questions about the hobby in general? You can probably ask questions about the GMG, about the Minicon. So floor is open.
Wait, you only mentioned one event.
Yes.
What's the second one?
The second event is part 2.
Oh!
It's a two-parter.
Okay.
You think it'll take one session to end the world? I don't think so.
Okay.
I just hope it doesn't happen in April 1. April Fool.
Any other questions? Why are you here? What got you curious about the talk?
Our friend.
It's usually friends who do that. They introduce you to bad habits.
I
Well,
wouldn't call it a bad habit.
in fairness, both of us were already in the RPG hobby, but way before we met her. So she's the one who just the organization, this organization.
Oh, good. The hobby is naturally a very, very social hobby. It's a lot more fun with people involved. And you'd be surprised the insights and inspirations that other people can give you. So it's one of the things that I like about this community is that the games masters of this community are eager to game for each other and game under each other. So we basically learn from each other. And the more people we can game for, the better. Because, like I said, every personality at the table makes the game experience unique. So the more people we can get into the hobby, the better. Okay? Any other questions?
Yeah, like if you're a DM, you have any questions about how to handle players, problems, or if you're a player, we could answer those.
If you're the problem player.
Actually, there are.
Yeah.
I've been in the hobby since 1980.
Let me I think the less frequently asked question would be how would you handle a problematic GM?
You don't come back to the table. Yeah, exactly.
That's very easy. You don't play again under it.
Yeah, you don't play again under it. Exactly.
Next question.
The other problem, well, here's the thing. Somebody once said, in order to be a good artist, you have to be willing to be a bad one first. And that's true for the craft of being a games master. You have to be a bad GM first before you can be a good one. But how can you be a better games master if no one comes back to your table? It's about attitude. You have to tell people, okay, I'm not sure about this, I'm open to suggestions. It's a conversation, it's a give and take. If you are the games master, of all the things that I find useful is a willingness to listen. And a willingness to say, yeah, let's see how we can make that work. In fact, many of the more recent games advocate that. They advocate a form of a practice from improv theater, which is say yes or say yes but, say yes and. You never shut down your players. You never say nothing happens. You never say that won't work. You always say yes and, or yes but, or yes yeah.
If I may add, Adrian, so from experience, the sooner that you realize that it's not your game and it's for your players, the sooner that you will go to the next level.
Yes.
So I've had experience where, I was playing under several GMs and then their big bad NPC saves the day.
Oh, yeah.
And they railroad the campaign
Oh,
to fit their stories. And
Sorry.
they have a DM NPC who always knows, of course, because it's one in the same brain, what the opponent will do, and then know. Wow, they say we never get under him after that because it's not your show. And like I said, the sooner that you realize that it's not your show and you're making fun a common thing at the table is, and then you will realize that hey, it's a thing that you are just part of. You're just facilitating the fun for everyone.
What I really admire about our hobby, and I will say our hobby because it doesn't exist without other people, is that there is a tremendous body of written material that addresses exactly what Mon's talking about. The hobby really takes itself seriously to the point where it asks very painful questions. You have blog posts about what did I do wrong, or blog posts about I had this horrible GM. You have blog posts about this is something I tried at my table, it was a hit, you might want to try it. So this is a hobby that takes full advantage of the new technology we have, the internet, where people get to share things with each other. Back in my day, the only way you could share information was through magazines, and those were expensive, and they came only once a month. Today, you wake up and you look at your inbox, you have 10 new messages, each one something new. So this hobby is accelerating in its growth curve. People are sharing insights, people are sharing best practices. In fact, I like calling Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition the best practices edition, simply because the Wizards of the Coast did exactly that. They asked prominent members of the community to pitch in.
Because sport was a joke. No, that's another.
But that's a different conversation. One more. No to that. I'm going to ask Rich that. Having basically lived through the entire history of the hobby in this country, I can tell you one thing. Nothing is wasted. It doesn't matter if it's 1st edition, it doesn't matter if it's 4th edition, it doesn't matter if it was really, really badly written. Somehow, in the future, you'll stumble across that piece of material, and you will find a gem. That one single gem you were looking for your game.
That's right.
Nothing is wasted. So, having said that, the other nice thing about this community is that we're not just consumers, we are creators. You might have a bad idea, but you know what? Somebody might think it's brilliant, and that exactly might be the idea that person you're looking for. So I encourage you to not only play, but share.
Let me add that to Adrian. You could memorize the manual of your car, of the Toyota, and you can read everything technical, but until you get behind the wheel and start driving. And the hobby is like that. No? It doesn't matter how many books you own, collect, download, or read, but the best teacher to is to play, and to play under different GMs. If you want to understand how each one has their take about preparation, narrative, etc. Really experience the best teacher.
And that's why we have parties like this, why we have these things. You are welcome to anybody's game. If you remember the table outside, we have games that are open slots. So I encourage you, look for a game right now. Get to know the games master, get to know your fair players, have fun. Come back next month. Well, come back in April, then come back in May, June. Lather, rinse, repeat. Last question, then I'll wrap up the session. None? All right. Please fill up the feedback form. Please collate the character sheets. And once again, thank you so much for spending this afternoon.